to Salam Media, and my name is Pagamile Hlubi Majola. I am standing in this morning. I'm your guest presenter. I was just told that this is a new studio, so I must say, double honor today. I'm honored to be guest hosting on the first day of Ramadan and honored to be the first presenter in the new Salam Media studios. Woo woo! So I'm very excited about that. My producer's looking at me like I'm crazy. Anyway, back to the show. So thank you so much for sticking around. We had that wonderful conversation with Dr. Jagannath. We are now going to change tack and talk about a very important issue, I think, that has been a major talking point in the last couple of days, the issue of water and water access. And my guest actually in studio is Dr. Anthony Kaziboni, who is a senior researcher at the University of Johannesburg. He's going to talk to us about water apartheid in post-apartheid South Africa, what the crisis exposes. So welcome to Salam Media, and thank you so much for being our guest.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Dr. Anthony. Let's get right into this. There have been water protests taking place in all parts of the country in the last couple of weeks. And this is not a new thing. There have been serious issues with accessing water in various parts of South Africa. But what I'd like us to hone in on is this concept of water apartheid. What do you mean, first of all, by water apartheid, and how does it apply in our current context in South Africa?
Thank you. Thank you very much again for having me. Water apartheid is a novel concept, and it combines the access to water and simply the definition of apartheid. When we talk about apartheid, we're talking about the policy that was implemented in South Africa in 1948 by the Nationalist Party, where they believed that they could implement separate development. And through that, different peoples could live in their own spaces and develop separately. So, when we locate this concept in contemporary South Africa, it is critically important to locate it from South African apartheid. And the logic again stems from this separatedness. During apartheid, what was implemented was apartheid hydrology, where we had, different understandings, different implementation of water services, engineers with different skills, substandard skills, being, developing infrastructure in areas that were defined as black. So you will find that through apartheid hydrology, where black areas during apartheid accessed inferior water services, we inadvertently haven't done enough in contemporary society to resolve those challenges. So where we are, we're now at a tipping point where it is not only water apartheid in a conventional sense, where then it was, the lack of access by people of color, but now, early on, it started in the townships, where we had a lot of townships experiencing burst pipes, poor access to water services, and the list goes on and on and on of water related challenges. Here we are, we have suburbs and suburbians protesting. So, there's much we can talk about regarding that, but I'll stop here for now.
And I'm very interested in how you've actually found a way to link what happened and what was happening. And by the way, it's still happening in many townships and in many informal settlements all over the country around reduced water access. And now we find ourselves in situations where even in the areas of well-heeled, slightly more affluent society in the suburbs, water access is a problem. When I think about water apartheid, for example, and also some of the frustrations around it, I think of somebody like Andries Tatane, who unfortunately died in the process of protesting over water. I think about my days as a journalist when I would go into the Northwest in Mututung, and there would be violent protests over an inability to deliver water. And I noted, for example, that in the SONA, President Ramaphosa spoke about ensuring that there would be water coming out of people's taps. The question I have for you, Dr. Anthony, is what has been so difficult for this government to actually solve this problem? Why are they struggling to solve the problem of creating greater water access for all South Africans, not just for those who are high earners living in the suburbs?
It's a great question. It's a great comment. So I'll talk a little bit about Andreas Tatani, and I watched him die on TV when the protest happened in Vicksburg, and then I was a postgraduate student. I just gotten home watching the late afternoon news. I watched him die, and that clip was not played ever again on the news because the reporters who were taking that footage didn't know that he was going to die. So I watched him die. And it's what prompted my interest in the topic. Why would a citizen be killed by South African police over his right to protest because of his right to access water? So, in short, that was my interest, and I did my field work in Madibeng. So, when we talk about the current challenges we have, they're multi layered. In work I've done, I argue that and this is also very well documented, that we're experiencing what people term anthropogenic water scarcity. This is human-induced scarcity that's emanating from a failure to plan, a failure to manage water resources, and also other issues such as leaks and pollution. So we're in a space where we need to understand these different types of anthropogenic causes of water scarcity and how to tailor responses based on that. With South Africa, we do find that, for example, where we have leaks emanating, I'll draw, for example, from the case you've noted. In the Northwest Province, Bris area, there were allegations of tampering of municipal infrastructure, pumps, pipes being burst, and we do know that there's a rampant tenderpreneur spirit in that sector, and people are willing to go the extra miles of vandalizing infrastructure in order to get work. If you look at municipalities themselves, looking at the Auditor General's reports, you can tell that there is a lot of financial mismanagement and corruption linked to how municipalities are operating. Again, if you look at population growth, there are aspects around planning. In Johannesburg's oldest cities, we have some of the infrastructure over a century old. Why wasn't the necessary maintenance and planning done? So there are a plethora of explanations around how we got to where we are. And again, drawing from the president's remarks, what we're now experiencing is a water crisis, and it's cut across all racial lines, all class categories. What with the apartheid will still remain in place is linked to South Africa's own challenges as a country. We're the most unequal country in the world, and Johannesburg as a city is the most unequal city in the world. So some people will happily pay, thousands of rands of a water bill. Some people can't afford to pay for water, and whilst progressively the state has, a free basic water policy, where households are allocated 6,000 liters per month, and this is calculated, by 25 liters for a household of 8 people over 30 days. Our typical households in townships don't have 8 people. There are multiple families staying, in the same household, and that allocation of 6,000 kiloliters is depleted before you even know it. And you then have people having to, pay astronomical water bills, and drawing on this, we then have conversations around punitive measures being implemented to ensure that we don't use more water than that is generated. That's the discussion. Those are the discussions that are going on. If these punitive measures such as water throttling, higher
Mm,
tariffs are implemented, who suffers? The rich can go buy more water. They can bring in tankers. But it's the disadvantaged
absolutely.
community who struggle the most.
And in fact, I'd like to pick up on that last note and very quickly, Dr. Anthony, if you may, just summarize for us, in your view, is neoliberalism and the continuation of neoliberalism and austerity deepening this problem? Because there are many economists who have said that the problem here is that we have privatized the water, or we are allowing anyway more and more private players to play a greater role in the provision of what is a constitutional and basic human right, which is access to water. What are your thoughts around that? How can we permanently solve this problem and ensure that the majority of people are actually able to access water and that it is affordable and accessible to all?
It's written in the Constitution. Water is a basic right, and the state has a responsibility to ensure the progressive realization of that right. What we need to do is to deal with the main issues that are causing the lack of access to water. And these, from the work that I've done and from what I've noted, again, revolve around these anthropogenic water causes. We need to deal with corruption in the water sector and ensure that people get water. We need to ensure that the resources dedicated by the state and through the state's various levels of government get to the people. And we also need to ensure, and this is now appealing to people in local government, people abide by Batobedi principles. We need an ethical workforce, people who are willing to go the extra mile to ensure that communities are served. Again, my closing comments, the rights of access to water should be realized by all South Africans. And this water apartheid in the post apartheid landscape is deeply unjust.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anthony, for your thoughts. And thank you for taking the time out to join us on Salam Media and explain to us the importance of this very important concept of water apartheid. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a brief break. We've got bills we need to pay. We will be right back with another engaging and interesting interview on Salam Media.